And you get to a place where, for me, where I thought I was going to die. I couldn't stop. You know, I couldn't stop, and you know, we talk about a rock bottom. And I guess I'd had a few rock bottoms, and I tried to get clean at 30, and I hadn't gone down to the dark levels that I did when I eventually stopped at 34. You know, the progression was pretty bad. You know, but my using was pretty bad from an early age. You know, just using on my own, really. Pretty weird, pretty sad, really. But I had to get to that stage to be where I am now today. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be in a situation where I can help people and stuff like that if I hadn't gone through the darkness, you know. Just kind of, again, similar to some stuff that we spoke about earlier. You know, I needed that darkness to see the light.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Today we've got friend, DJ, legend in my eyes.
International DJ, nightclub promoter.
DJ, promoter, event organiser and all-round legend.
DJ, promoter, he runs his own events company. Ross Mac.
Ross Mac.
Ross Mac.
Ross Mac.
Could you slim me down for the camera?
Well, if I could, I'd be doing that for me as well, to be honest. Breathe in. Ross, you're a legend, brother.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. Well, for you, obviously you're a DJ, but you also run an entertainment agency. Can you talk a little bit about that? Just give a bit of background to your game and what you do.
To give you background, I started DJing at 13, buying music, and DJing in clubs at 16 years old. So I was doing under 18s parties at 13, and 16 years old I was in proper nightclubs. Drink, drugs, women, all that sort of stuff, which was, you know, at that age was good fun. And yeah, so my brother had a friend who was older, and he got me into, they would get me in the clubs at 16, it was a bit different back then as well than it is now. So I was always DJing in nightclubs, and then when I was about 34, I started some events business, because I've always DJing in clubs and stuff. People were saying, oh, I'm getting married, or I'm doing a party, and all that stuff was, if I'm honest with you, was always a bit like, no one does that kind of stuff, you know, when you're a cool DJ, you know, and you kind of stick to clubs. But then got a bit older, people started saying, well, you do my wedding, you do my birthday, and it just progressed from then to actually, you know, I know how to run parties, I know how to create a vibe, and I know how to play music, and know how to bring in all the guys that have worked with me for the last 30 years in events, sax players, bongo players, singers, garage artists, DJs, all this kind of stuff. So we put that into an events company, and we're good at what we do.
Yeah. You've been doing it for a while, man. You've been doing it for a while, and thankfully you brought me in 8 years ago, not 4.
Yeah, I think it was longer than that, but we're going to go with 8. We'll go with 8.
Even longer, to be fair, it probably was actually. But it has been a while, and it's been weddings. We've done a bunch of weddings together, parties, birthday parties. I think we've done the odd corporate, but it's mainly sort of weddings. I think you've got me involved.
We do corporates as well. We've tried to do a couple of abroad bits, but you're always busy. You know, you're like me. The good guy's always busy, so you know, like, you know, you're one of my go-to people, but you're always busy, and I respect that. You know, the good guys are always busy. You know, so you need a little team.
Well, they say you don't trust a skinny baker, and you don't trust an available builder.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Although I was a baker and I was always skinny, and I guess that's why I don't bake much anymore. But yeah, so for me, when I play in clubs, when I do sort of weddings as well, I find that, like, look, there's always alcohol flowing. And I used to also work in IT, and, you know, people, at least on the surface, seem like they were stone cold sober and they're just doing their job. You wouldn't drink at work if you're working in a corporate job. But in the music business, drinks are flowing all the time. Now, all the time. And it's not taboo to have a drink at work. I mean, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? So I've had a few drinks at work all the time. I wouldn't necessarily get drunk, but certainly will have a drink. But then also there's the other side of things where I've played in environments where people they're not just offering you a drink, they're offering you a little bit of sniff. They're offering you a pill of something that you've no idea what it is. You know, they're smoking a little bit of ganja or something like that. And from where I've come from, I started making music in church. That was, you wouldn't see a hint of that. There wasn't an idea of doing any drink or drugs or whatever. You know, the closest you get to wine is the communion, and even that was like Ribena. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't actually give you alcohol. So getting into music and getting into live music a lot more, that stuff became a lot more available. And there isn't really like anybody to advise on whether or not that's a good idea. And the reason I want to speak to you particularly about this, because I know that you work with a lot of musicians who are essentially on the mend, who are, you know, kind of trying to be teetotal, who've had sort of crashed out on drugs. And I think,
I'm still on the mend as well.
No,
Always on the mend. No,
you're
no,
perfect,
always.
mate. What do you mean?
No, you're always. I'm always on the mend. I'm always trying to be better, strive, and trying to. Yeah, for me, it's ongoing. You know, it's like, yeah. So I butt in there, but
No,
yeah,
it's all right.
I'm definitely not mended, but I'm on the mend. Yeah, 100%. But it's for me, it's ongoing. It's like if you go to the gym, you don't just go to the gym and get big muscles and go, right, I've got big muscles. It's ongoing. You continue to train, you continue to look at your diet, and you continue to try and tweak things. Well, my recovery is the same.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a little bit way down the line now, but I'll still I do stuff daily. You know, I still talk to people, and it's important because it keeps me reminded of where I've come from, and where I don't want to be. But it just keeps me in a mental state, you know, in a better place to continue. You know, I see so many people, and I think they're like dry drunks. You know, there's being sober and there's being in recovery is two different things. There's been abstinence from alcohol is one thing, but actually being in recovery and working on yourself and, you know, going to the gym and meditation and cold water therapy and therapy, which we spoke about earlier. And, you know, I've done loads of therapy. You know, all these things are ingredients that I think that it's important to continue to be in a good space, in a good headspace.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a journey completely. Now, full disclosure, I am no expert in any of these videos that we're talking
And me
about.
neither, by the way. I'm not an expert in nothing.
No. I mean,
so that's fine.
Apart from being a DJ, you're pretty expert at you know, spinning records, and I'm kind of okay at blowing the sax. But outside of that, certainly not an expert in any of this. But I am aware because I see it often. I have musicians who I work with sometimes who are, you know, who dabble in different drugs, and if I see them on a gig, I know when I work with this musician, he's going to offer me Charlie, and it's up to me to say no every time. But I know that's going to happen, and I go into a gig and I'm like, how you doing, bro? I'd give it 10 or 15 minutes and, hey, do you want to come down the back and do X, Y, Z? But I talk about it because I know a lot of musicians, you know, we're talking about this off camera as well, a lot of musicians who struggled with that and how much it sort of impacted their life. And because of the environments we play in, it's parties all the time, it's always up, it's always fun. You know, we're providing a party for somebody else. It's not a personal party by any means. We are working, but we're working in such a cool, fun environment. You sort of get lost a little bit in it and you want to kind of party as well. And I've seen that sort of tank people in a big way, and I know you've seen that tank people in a big way, and I just wanted to know if you could share any stories about musicians who maybe you've seen kind of who were sort of clean and sober beforehand, and maybe they've now gone into dabbling with things and it sort of had an impact, or any, you know, stories along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads I can share with you. The one thing I wanted to share was, you spoke about your IT job. So, like, you wouldn't go in on a Monday and then go, oh, I've got a line of gear here. Like, does anyone want a line of gear and I've got some drink? Because you wouldn't last very long.
No.
You'd be out the door. But yet, we could turn up at a gig together tonight and I'd go, I've got a bit of gear on me or whatever. And that's accepted.
That's normal, yeah.
That's normal, you know. And then that's the difference between what we do and doing your IT job. And I know people in our industry that have said that not drinking and taking drugs has actually held them back in our industry because they weren't at the after parties. People didn't trust them because they didn't take drugs. It's pretty sad, isn't it?
Wow.
But yeah, they've said, a few people said, yeah, I've never done drugs and it's really held me back. And I can really see that. I mean, you know, there's so many stories I can tell. I mean, you know, for me, just from my experiences, was like, I was drinking at 16, but from a really early age, like I've got a really obsessive nature, so that stuff really got hold of me quickly, and like everything I do is like obsessive. So I'd never run before, and I run a lot now, but I'd never run before. And then I run 3 miles, then I've done 6 miles, then I've done a half marathon, then I'm running marathons. So everything I do is excessive. Then I started doing triathlons, then I've done a London triathlon, then I was cycling, then I cycled to Paris.
Right.
You know, like everything I do is just extreme. And when I done the London triathlon, I had some Coke in my running bag for when I finished a race.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a ready to go moment. Do you know what I mean? You don't see the Olympians when they finish their line go, bang, I'm done. I'm going to go and get the gear that's in my bag. But that was where I was at, was I knew that I would need it if we had a beer after, because alcohol was the gateway drug. You know, and to answer your questions, like, you know, I've seen a lot of examples of that. People not turning up for gigs. I've turned up for gigs myself, like 3 day, you know, we've been on a 3-day bender and stuff like that. And, you know, I've worked for people, you know, because in our industry, people's buying, you know, I work with people and I've ended up owing them money, or I've ended up, getting paid in drugs and stuff like that as well. So, you know, and I worked with someone recently at a gig, and I won't say too much, you know, and they turned up and they could barely walk.
Wow.
You know, and in our industry, which I think the thing that people forget is, yeah, it's fun, it's all the things that you spoke about, but it's still a job, you know, and it's, when you're young, it's difficult to differentiate that because it's like party time all the time. I lived abroad for a couple of years, and I lived in Faliraki in Greece, and now we're drinking every night, and you turn up for work, the first thing you do is shots, but it's kind of a part of what you do, right, when you're in that, it's kind of part of the industry. But yeah, this guy turned up and he's had bits of sobriety as well, and he turned up, and it was a gig that I was at, and he could barely walk. Do you know what I mean? And it's really sad because I know that person is an amazing artist, but it's really sad to see like that. And the amount of people now, you know, I've been clean, you know, in a month's time I'll be 11 years sober. Thanks, bro.
Congrats, man.
Thanks, mate.
It's incredible.
And when I got clean, it wasn't really spoken about. You know, I didn't talk about this stuff for probably like 5 years. It wasn't really spoke about. I didn't know anyone that got sober. In fact, I'd never would have associated people that got sober. You know, I work in a cool industry where, you know, it's actually encouraged to drink and party. You know the DJs, the record ones, you know, they're all the cool guys that play on our beef and stuff like that. So, you know, we're trying to change the narrative around that. Well, actually, you know, it's not really the done thing anymore. And since I've got clean, you know, I've seen a lot more people get clean, and there's a lot more big name DJs stuff getting clean, which is great because he's putting it out there. And I've been trying to do a lot of stuff in the industry, and it's not been going that well, if I'm being brutally honest with you. Trying to do some like seminars or some workshops, just trying to say to people, look, this is a cool industry that we work in. And I've got some really good speakers in the industry that are sober or I've been on their path, and it's really difficult to get it out there. I've approached some big labels, and I spoke to a friend of mine they're sober, and she was kind of my last, and I've kind of parked it a little bit for now because I know it'll happen when it's the right time, but I feel like I'm chasing it a bit. I know how people are struggling, and I want people to feel how we feel, and they're going to listen to people, their peers in our industry, you know, the people that I work with, big name DJs and, you know, big name house DJs, drum and bass DJs. You know, I work with promoters that are doctors now, you know, some really, really cool people. But sometimes getting that message out is difficult because people don't want to listen to it, and I get it.
Because it's not cool. Like you said, it's not fun.
It's
for
not.
Whatever reason.
But it is a little bit now coming cool. Sober is kind of coming the new cool.
That's good.
It is. But you are right, because you try and tell people that are in the party lifestyle, and they're like, no one gives a shit. Am I allowed to swear?
You just did. Don't worry about it.
They're like, no one cares about your sobriety. So and you're right, that's not cool. But actually, it is becoming cool. It is becoming a thing because we're all getting a bit older, and people are realising you look after yourself. So you've got the two sides really. You've got the caners that it's definitely not cool, and you've got the people that have been caning too much. It go, actually, it's pretty cool. I need to be part of that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start naming. There's another big name DJ. She's just got sober, and I'm like,
Great.
good for her. Because she's in the spotlight, and I think that'd be really good. But it's about continuing in this stuff. I think the biggest thing that I see, or the biggest pitfalls I see people fall into, is they get a bit of clean time, and they want to tell everyone, which is great, but it really puts a lot of pressure on yourself.
Yes.
Because what happens is they end up relapsing, and it's harder for them to come back, and they feel stupid, because they're preaching to everyone. So my advice to anyone would just be focus on your recovery. I didn't speak for this stuff about 5 years, and now I still find it difficult because I want to put my recovery first. It's about making sure that I'm in a safe space,
Yeah, of course.
But that's a thing that I see a lot, is people, they want to preach before they've even, they've not even finished a race, and they're trying to tell everyone how good it is, and it's great, but I just think be careful around that stuff.
Well, it's definitely important that sobriety is becoming cool. It's definitely important about that, and I say that because, again, the industry is it's so charged. It's all high energy, and a lot of the time when people that we're working for or working with, a lot of them think it's part of the environment to go ahead and do a line or something or whatever. And I guess what isn't seen is the impact that it has after the fact. You mentioned somebody you worked with turned up to a gig and they could barely stand. And the thing is, that doesn't shock me. It's almost like brownie points if you can do a gig, get absolutely hammered, do another gig, get absolutely hammered, and then go to your last gig and you're barely standing, but you still provided the service, you still did the gig. And people are sort of celebrating that in some respects. And
it's funny because maybe we'll talk more off camera, but the mad thing was this person, even though they were that bad, as soon as the music started, they were doing what they needed to do. And then I was there with a friend of mine, and we spoke about the situation, and we were watching this guy, and we were like, it was mad because his brain was so into tune. He was like, and he was straight into where he needed to be. So actually, it was fine. No one noticed, but I knew, and I noticed, and it was crazy.
Yeah,
it was crazy. But as soon as he heard the da 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 da, he was
every
like,
note.
And he was. But you know what? It wasn't even that. It was more obscure tunes than that. It was like, I think Space Cowboy dropped in, and it was just a little chop in. He chopped it in, and he heard the chop in, and he's gone. He's done da 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 da, and then me and my friend, we were watching this, and we were like, wow, we know this guy's intoxicated. He's just heard a bit of a tune, and yet his brain is still, and he, because I don't know what you call that. What do you call that? Where you can still act like that even though you're.
Yeah. Like it's almost like
retention, like muscle retention. Yeah. But that's just a recent one that there's like a million things I've been at where people have turned up, and I've been in the club. I remember I was in the club one year, and one of the DJs was so drunk, the manager had enough and was just literally like being held back from beating him up, and he was like, Ross, get back on the decks, and there's like a million things, where the guy was just, but it's encouraged, you get there and it's like, what drinks do you want? Bang, I want a bottle of vodka and a DJ bottle, and you've got all your pals there, they're all doing what they want to do, and there's shots flying around, and there's drugs flying around, and it's, and it's part of it. And, and I don't, I don't preach about what I do, because most of my stuff is working in them clubs that provide alcohol, so, but I don't know, it's just about trying to say to people that if you are in that space, there's ways around it, you know?
Yeah. You've got to know yourself as well. Me, I've got a very addictive personality, very, very addictive personality, similar to yourself. I'm all in. So when I started playing the saxophone and I was intrigued by the instrument, I play for hours every day, 6 hours, 8 hours, to sit in a park like this, bring my horn, no one's around, and just blow and blow and blow. And I do that, to the nth degree. Remember when I had my first cigarette, still smoking cigarettes, and that was some 15, 20 years ago, still not 20, about 15. But like still very much it's a part of, you know, what I do. And I remember I had my first joint and now, oh, gosh, smoking weed becomes a real habit. And then again, in the industry around certain people, there's certain groups that I play with where there's usual suspects who will undoubtedly have a 3-5 or a bag of weed on them. And it's always going to be a part of the game. But I've also noticed at times, I mean, I'll share this. This is pretty dark, but I will share this. I had an experience where I was, maybe I edit it out. So if I don't edit it out, you'll see this, but we'll see. Probably will. But I had an experience where I was on my way to a gig, and this was shortly after I had tried like coke for the first time. Somebody had, and it was only in music. I was smoking cigarettes outside of that, but music, being in the industry, has got me dabbling in all kinds of other things that I've completely pulled back from. I wouldn't even have the wherewithal to sit down and have a conversation about this stuff, set up a camera, put together a podcast, if I was still quite deep in that. But I was on my way to a gig and needed to use the toilet, long journey, you know, go to the local pub, use the toilet in the pub. There's a dude in the pub who's like, I'm definitely gonna edit this out. There's a dude in the pub who was like, he asked me if I could play the sax for him. And we're in like urinals. I'm like, dude, man, I've got a gig to go to. I'm not really gonna do that. But he was insistent. I was like, no. I'm trying to get out of this pub now. And he sort of like blocked me off. I was like, no, I really want you to. You know, I've just come out of prison. Really big burly dude. Just come out of prison. My dad loved the sax. I really, really want to hear some saxophone. Can you just play the sax for me? So I'm like, okay, you win. So I played a little bit for him in this pub, and he was like overwhelmed. Dude starts crying. He talks about how beautiful it was. He really, really appreciated it. Come do a line with me. Hey man, I'm going to work. I can't really do that. Long story short, he was a very persuasive dude, and ended up doing so much coke with this guy that I had no intention of doing with him whatsoever. Go to this gig now, steaming on all the stuff that he's given me. Gig went really, really well, up until the point where I then just started asking for more money because the gig was so good. And I'm so good. I provided such a great service. You got to be paying me more for this. And basically by the end of the night, got kicked out by the manager and never gigged for those guys again because it was just so awful. And I'm only saying that because like there's a there's like a facade almost where you sort of think when you're doing this stuff, you kind of feel like invincible. Doesn't matter what the drug is in some respects. Like you sort of feel like, yeah, my music has been heightened because of it. What I'm doing is even better. If you look at all of the old, you know, old rock and roll and jazz guys, they were all steaming on whatever. There's like stories of John Coltrane in the recording booth with a saxophone hanging out his mouth, and he just sat there, you know, because he's so high on whatever opioid he was on. And then when they're like trying to get his attention, he's not there. But when it comes the point to record, man, blinding music, you know, bestsellers. So drugs is very much synonymous with music, with entertainment. And a lot of comedians will say if you want to get rid of drugs, then you've also got to get rid of half the music industry because that's what it's kind of, you know, born from. But I've found when I really kind of analyze it, I don't think music gets better when you're high. I don't think it does.
No.
I think it's a fallacy. It's different. You feel better. Your ego is through the roof, but it doesn't mean your technical ability gets any better at all. You'll only ever be as good as what you've got going on inside. Do you know what I mean? So is there an argument for doing drugs and making music? Is there an argument for being better on this?
I don't think so, but you think you're better, and that's the thing. You do. You think you're like, it pumps your chest up, and you think you are. And I don't think that's true. And it's like you spoke about, like the Beatles wrote like "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds," all about drugs and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you always think, you think about these rock and roll stars, but my experience is that when I drink and use, I go inwards. So there's no creativity from me. I'm just like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't believe that to be true.
Yeah.
You know, maybe with some people, but I just can't see it. Like I say, I think it's that sex, drugs and rock and roll thing. You know, yeah, it's all right maybe after the event, but I don't know. I always thought I played better, you know, and it's just that lie, you know, that he tells you. Just, yeah, I mean, I do it sober obviously now and have done for like the 11 years, and it's like, I don't know, it's just part of ingrained into me, but You know, I know people that can't do it sober.
Right.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
people that can't do it sober. They can't get on the stage, but I don't know. I guess it's just for me. When I got sober, I thought, oh, am I going to be able to DJ anymore?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can do this, because I remember I was 4 days clean. I was running an event. I'm a promoter as well, so I run nightclub events, and I was running this event, and I remember I was in the bar and I was looking at this alcohol. I was thinking, how can I stop drinking this stuff? Like when I'm in this environment, you know. But my recovery's shown me if I put my recovery first, like I can do anything that I want to do.
Yeah.
That's what that's shown me. But in the early days, I was just like, you know, I'm in this environment where, you know, like you say, you get given all the time, and people don't. I've been around enough now. People know me. They don't offer me drink or drugs anymore. That's not a thing. But it was a thing for a few years still. Do you know what I mean? And people saying to me, "Oh, you'll be alright to have one with me," and all that kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it doesn't work like that for me. You know, my brain's not wired that way. It's 3 days later.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's not even the 3 days later when you finish. It's the 5 days after that, the come down of can't answer the phone, I can't deal with bookings, you know, I can't speak to people. I never used to be able to open letters, couldn't open mail. Do you know what I mean? It was just life was a mess, you know. Life was a mess, and just spirals, you know.
Yeah.
And you get to a place where, for me, where I thought I was going to die. I couldn't stop, you know. I couldn't stop, and you know, we talk about a rock bottom. And I guess I'd had a few rock bottoms, and I tried to get clean at 30, and I hadn't gone down to the dark levels that I did when I eventually stopped at 34. You know, the progression was pretty bad, you know, but my using was pretty bad from an early age, you know. Just using on my own, really. It's pretty weird, it's pretty sad, really. But I had to get to that stage to be where I am now today.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be in a situation where I can help people and stuff like that if I hadn't gone through the darkness, you know. Which is kind of, again, similar to some stuff that we spoke about earlier. You know, I needed that darkness to see the light,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's and that experience is what I now carry on in this industry. And it's funny, like I say, I'm knocking on these doors, and I don't know, maybe I'm knocking on the wrong doors, maybe it's not the right time, but you know, I've just been trying to do some industry stuff and just saying, look, it's no one's saying you can't drink or party, but this is what happens. And actually, if you're going to do that stuff, these are things you can do to help you feel better. Do you know what I mean? This is what I do. And it's not about preaching, you know, like I have a morning routine. It's about repetition.
Yeah.
You know, playing the sax, right? You played every day and you went to a park and you played. That's how you got good. You know, how I get good at recovery and my mental health is repetition. You know, I do stuff every single day. You know, I talk to other addicts, people in recovery every day, you know, and that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
You know, and it made me laugh when you were talking about learning, you know, learning the sax. Like, I don't think people do that anymore. I don't think people, what I've seen, do and that's what I did. You know, I spent my youth locked in a bedroom mixing, and we were
Great.
playing vinyl then, right?
Yeah.
And I listened to podcasts and all the time, and I listened to this girl the other week, and she was like, you know, I've worked really hard. I worked really hard to get where I am. I've been DJing like a year and a half now. You know, I should be, and it's like they feel that they should be playing Ibiza or you know, doing something like that, when the reality of it is like 18 months is nothing.
Yeah, no, that's
You
just,
know.
that's, you're still a beginner at that stage.
Yeah.
You're very much still a beginner at
Yeah,
that stage.
and I hear that a lot. People say, oh yeah, you know, and it's like, I'm not trying to belittle people, I'm just saying, like, I loved it when you spoke about how you started off and you was learning. Exactly was my experience. It was just like learning, and just, you know, trying to learn the trade, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And I never thought about the big clubs. I think as well, like, I'm not trying to, but a lot of people, they way they want to skip that stuff out and they want to go straight to the front of the queue. You must see that a lot as well with what you do. But I certainly see that with DJs, and you need that experience. Experience is what makes a party.
Yeah, of
You
course.
know, I can when I do a party, I don't even need to tell you what sort of thing it is. You just come and you bang and you know and you see it. That's that experience, and you just jump straight on. You do what you do, you know. But that's experience. People don't. They seem to want to skip that.
Yeah. And it's necessary. You need, because you can hear the difference between somebody who's been DJing for a year and a half and somebody who's been DJing for 30 years.
Yeah.
You can hear the difference. And it's not necessarily just in the mixing or in the way they make music. It's in the way they interact with the crowd. It's in the way they interact with the client. It's the way that they've got their whole thing set up. And then also it's what warrants whatever pay tag that they put on their services, because they've spent years and years kind of, building their craft. And I spent hours and hours and hours every day. I didn't gig until maybe 5 years into playing the sax. I was playing in church, but not gigs, it was in a safe environment where I was playing, but I wasn't unleashed to the world until I had a grasp of what I was doing, until I could play in all the keys. I could play by ear, I could memorize music, I could play on cue, I could hold the sax down. It wasn't until the fundamentals were in place. And it was that repetition. But it's interesting actually, because there's a parallel with, I wouldn't say it became an addiction, but it was something I did so regularly, it was a pattern that I would always go to. So now I don't necessarily need to jivvy up myself to play the sax. I want to. But it's actually part of my routine. It's part of the things that I do. Now, to sort of refer it back into the other side of things we're talking about, when you are in environments very often where actually it's almost part of the thing to have a drink, it's almost part of the thing to like get involved with the way that people are partying, and it's almost a habit. Like using essentially becomes a habit. You've done that for maybe years, or maybe you're just getting into it, but then it can become literally a part of the way that you do life, and that then becomes difficult to switch that off. And I say that from somebody who's still trying to stop smoking cigarettes. Like, I've got my backie in the bag, do you know what I mean? And I'll roll one up after this. It's still very much a part of what I do, and it's hard to get out of it. But actually, that's the end of that point. It is quite difficult to stop. So I guess I just wanted to ask you, when it comes to the routine of like being in environments, I know you said a little bit like you go into a bar and you think to yourself, how am I not going to drink here? This is not only are there drinks displayed everywhere, but it's kind of what I do. Like, how do you kind of switch off what is a very present part of you in terms of just the habits of, I'll have a drink. Not that anything's necessarily wrong with drinking as such, but you know yourself, you know your boundaries. So how do you get to that point where you can be 11 years sober?
So one thing that, I always say is like, I never want to drink again. Like, that's the plan. The plan is never want to drink again, right? But forever's a long time, right? Sure. So it's always been about just keeping it in the day. So it was always about, can I be sober for today? Well, I can do today, and that's it. And that's kind of how and then a year becomes a month becomes 6 months, 6 months become a year, and it's just been that progression really. And you'll see me at the bar, you'll see me getting drinks, all the guys that work for me and stuff. So, I'm often at the drink, getting 2 drinks and stuff like that. So I don't like to do that stuff as much, but I still am around that stuff because I need to get the guys, the artists, or the singers, or the DJ. So I always get a couple of drinks at a time and carry them over, because then he saves me going to the bar and stuff. So I'm around that stuff, and I don't know. It's just, to say I don't know, it might sound silly, but it's just for me, it was just repetition. It was just about keeping it in the day, and it was just like, I just didn't want to be where I was before, and I think about drinking drugs all the time. I had a dream last night about it.
Wow.
I dream about it still, and I was told that would stop when I got early in recovery. But my dreams are really vivid, and I dream about it all the time. And in my dreams, I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I've done it. Like, why have I done it? And that's my dream. And I wake up, and it's weird. But I don't know. It's like, and my friend said it recently, and I can relate to it. He said, like, I'm the soberest drunk guy you'll know. And I think what he means by that is like we can go out and we can be like happy in the vibe, and because it's like, I'm free today, you know. So I'm like, I'm in it, and and it's like I'm the drunkest, soberest guy, you know what I mean? Because I'm buzzing like everyone else is buzzing. I'm just sober, you know what I mean? And that's kind of how I look at it. And people like, don't know, they don't really understand. And most people don't. I don't drink the zero stuff, and that's not because I've got an issue with it. I just don't want to be touching anything that's alcohol related. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, most people don't even know, you know. And if they know me, they know I don't drink. If they don't know me, they just assume whatever. I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the good thing about sobriety is that now so many people are giving up for so many reasons. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing what I was doing, which is a pretty good reason to want to stop. But a lot of people are a lot healthier these days. You know, like people I know, they say I don't like how it makes me feel. And you spoke earlier on about that guy in the toilet. You can't edit that bit out now.
No, I can't, thanks.
And you know, when we drink and use, we do stuff that we wouldn't do clean and sober.
Yes.
And that's the point we're trying to make. You know, people get in the car and they drink, drive, and you know, I've done all them sort of things. These are things that I wouldn't do clean and sober.
Yeah.
You know, the drink and the drugs puts me in a situation where my mind says it's okay to act in a certain way. And it's not all right to act in that way. And we can go, oh yeah, I was drunk, and that's fine. But actually, I'm a grown adult. I need to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
But if I drink and use, this is what I'll do. These are the people I hurt, because that's been my experience. I'll go on a 3-day bender because that's what I do when I drink and use. So today I choose not to drink and use. And it's you know, and again in our industry, you know, I've always DJed, I've always worked abroad, and I've always done stuff. Some, you know, we used to work for the Brit Awards, I've worked for Channel 4, we've done OK Magazine, and I've always done some really cool stuff. But the stuff that me and my business now do in the last 11 years is way better than anything that we did before. You know, like I say, we used to, but you know, the companies that we work for, the brands that we work for, the countries that I've worked in since I got sober, and I'm like, this is an industry that I thought I never would work in.
Yeah.
And actually, I do more stuff now than I've ever done. You know, because I'm on the ball. You know, on a Monday I'm on the phone. What else can we do? You know, I'm emailing clients. You know, I'm putting up footage on Instagram. All the things that I wouldn't be doing if I had been drinking and using.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm so productive when I meet clients that don't know me. I say, oh, just so you know, like I'm sober, like I don't drink. So on the day of your wedding, on the day of your event, like if you need something, I'm there. You know, if you need me to be there at 7, I'm there at 6:30. You know, I'm always early, always early. I'm on the ball. That's not right. Can we move that? Can we change the lighting? You know, as the music going, what's the clientele here? One thing which always makes me laugh is I think a lot of DJs, like they don't even look at who's there. Do you know what I mean? I'll get there early and I'll walk round and I'll see, right, what kind of guys are there? What age is there? What sort of people are there?
Sure.
You know, so I'll get a feel for the event before even anything's going on. I'm sussing people out. You know what I mean? It's like going the extra yard.
Yeah.
You know, whereas before, you know, you just turn up late, and I was late for everything. I was always late for everything. You know what I mean? I bring sorry bro, I'm late. Traffic's murder.
Yeah.
Murder.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I had a nightmare. The other DJ was late, anyway, it wasn't my fault. Always
there's
kind of stuff.
something else. Yeah.
Always, and you always thinking of excuses and lies, and you lie. You know, and it's like, you know, I never was up. You know, I'm up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock every day. You know, I go gym. You know, I do my morning routine, and I'm like, I'm alive. You know, and I'm on it. You know, and it's like, right, what can we do?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I could never do that before when I was drinking and using. You know, what I would do is some of the mad stuff I would do. Sometimes I'd be using for a few days. I'd black out, literally black out, and I'd wake up and I'd still have some stuff there and some alcohol, and I'd be bang straight off again. Yeah, because my nose had cleared up, and I was like, oh sweet, I can go on, and I would go off. You know, and that's the kind of stuff that I would do. Or, you know, the worst thing was if I had work. You know, your alarm clock's going off and you ain't been asleep. Let me tell you now, and that is not a good place to be. When you're in bed and your alarm is going off and you're like, I've not even been asleep. I've just had a vodka. I've just had a Livener. This is not a good place where I want to be. That's why I don't want to drink and use. These are the places I do not want to get to, because that's where it will take me. You know, like everyone's different. Like I know some people that have been sober for a long time, and this is kind of a common thing, is what they say to me is, do you know what, I was all right. I went out and had a couple of drinks and I was all right. And I went out another week and I had a couple more drinks and I was all right. And that's the common theme that you hear. But eventually I'll have a couple more drinks and I wasn't all right. Bang, and I've called it on. Bang, and I'm back to where we were. And I know people that have used once and they said to me, I've gone back to where I was 7 years ago, back to the same position where I was. right back where I was, you know. And I know that's where it will take me, so that's why I don't choose to do that. But
Yeah, of course.
yeah, it's just crazy, you know.
And it's what's kind of scary is a lot of musos aren't necessarily users before they're musicians, and being in this industry, that opens the door to all of it. Maybe you've dabbled in a little thing here or there, but who's going to parties as regular as DJs and musicians? Do you know what I mean? You're not doing that, really.
You know everyone as well. You know the dealers. You know the wrong ones. You know, because you get
Yeah.
to know them, and they want to know you as well.
They want to know you as well. Yeah, because you're fun to be around. And actually, if you are a musician, well done. Like what you do, a lot of people don't do. You put your work in, you put the time in, you're good at what you do, they love you. Of course they do. So they want to party with you. They want to have fun with you. And and I guess the line between professionalism and fun, I wouldn't want to say fun, because actually I do enjoy what I do, and I'm sure most musicians do, and I know you do enjoy the playing and the aspect of it. But the line between professionalism, I guess, and unprofessionalism, like that can be blurred because it's all within the context of a party.
Yeah.
It's all in the context of a good time, and the punters are having a good time, and God bless them, they'll do whatever they're doing. Like, of course they're going to do that. But that's not on us to necessarily get involved in that, even if they constantly beckon. I can't tell you the amount of cubicles I've gone into when I'm trying to, you know, a pee break between gigs, washing your hands at the sink. Oh, Saxo, hey mate, I love what you're doing. Oh, flipping great. The way you played Man in the Red, or Man in, was it? Man in the Red.
Man with the red face.
That's the one.
Banger.
You got me on that track,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Come on, let's do a line. Go on, let's do a line.
Yeah.
All the time,
Yeah.
man, all the time. And what is just a normal interaction then becomes like, there's a decision point there. Which way are you going to go? Like, and it's bizarre because, again, it's a lot of things that there isn't a rule book, or no one's telling you this is how to behave in this situation versus that situation. You're not going to really know. Obviously, like the term you say before, sex, drugs and rock and roll is all part of the game, but actually it's quite a destructive part of the game.
Yeah.
And I know musicians personally, fantastic players, whose lives have just been completely tanked, man. And it's sad. Like, it's really, really sad. Whose lives have been so impacted by the use of drugs and the use of alcohol. And this one particular musician was talking about earlier on, I remember being at an event and just seeing him getting in a full-blown fight with somebody, and a lot of that was due to him being a little bit drunk.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny. It just reminded me of two things actually. One, I've never told this story. I don't know why this is relevant, but it was at the time it's a good story. So we was in Ibiza, and we'd been to a club, and we'd called it on or whatever, and we'd gone back to the house after the apartment, and the dealer turned up that we'd met earlier, and he I don't even know if this is relevant. This is just a funny story. I thought it was funny, right? So he come back into the party. So I was like, right, I want whatever. I was some pills and some Mandy and some gear and whatever. So we bought that off of him, and he was all right. He was like, look, he goes, I'm a nice guy. I'm all sweet. It's all cool. And he kept saying I'm just a nice guy. No, there's nothing going on. So he's sweet. So I was like, yeah, cool. So what happened was I see him. He had a big stash of drugs. He put his drugs on there, and he just went to me, right, bang, and he went, there you go, bang, 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 and that was it, right? So then he left, and we just carried on partying, right? And I've gone back into the kitchen. I've looked there, and where he put the stash on the side, he left all of his drugs. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, right? He'd left everything, right? Where he's off his nut. He just put it on there and he just gone bang, 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 right? So I panicked because I was just like, this geezer could be a psycho, like, we was all off our nut, we was all partying or whatever. So this guy could be a nutter. So I went and got the stuff and I went and hid it. I told my best friend, right? And I said to him, this is what's happened. And he was like, we got to keep it. And I was like, no, man, we can't do that. Like, I said, look, the geezer was all right. He was a nice guy as well. I said to my mate, I said, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. If he rings back and asks for it, I'll give it to him. So off my nut, I was a bit, I said, and if he doesn't, we'll keep it, right? So then, anyway, Lixio, 5 minutes later on, he rings back. Ross, it's Steve or whatever. All right, mate. He goes, did I leave my keys in your apartment? I went, no. I went, all right, see you later, bye. Poof, bang, done, bosh, done. 3 days later, that was it. It was like, it was on.
my
He didn't
gosh.
ask for it. He was gone, bang, took the stash, and literally, our friends, like, wives were like, just in the end, they just said, just give us it all back, you know, because we're just, yeah. But it was just like, it was like the ultimate thing to happen, right? Was it just dealer leave his stash with us, but only in Ibiza.
Yeah, of course.
Only in Ibiza.
That is hilarious.
But you know what? On the flip side of that, I've done Ibiza sober a few times now. I've got some really good friends out there. There's really strong recovery in Ibiza, which people think's crazy as well. So anyone who goes to Ibiza now, I always link them in with some friends of mine. There's some really strong meetings. So we run a party at Ocean Beach about 5 years ago. Me and one of my best friends, Ricky from the Dog and Whistle, and everyone did get. I wasn't drinking, but everyone else got smashed, and it was just cool because we were planning this event for like 6 months. Ocean Beach is pretty big, obviously. Everyone knows it. We planned this event for like 6 months. It was a big deal for us. We brought a load of people there with us, which was really cool. And I played really well. I had a good set, obviously, because I'd organising it. Played really well, smashed it. Everyone was going mad. My missus is there. Like one of my brother's best friends was there, you know, and it was really cool. You know, really, really cool. And it's something I'll never forget, right? And everyone was smashed. And in the end of it, like, they were going to another club and I was like, cool, I'm done. Like, I'm down, like, no. I was like, no, honestly, it's cool. They were getting on my nerves. They get a bit, like, it gets to the point where some people get on my nerves a bit. And I was like, look, I've had a good day. I went and got something to eat. And I went to a recovery meeting and I'm like, this is my, you know, this is my thing. You know, I want to be around my people. You know, I've been with the carnage all day, done what I needed to do. And then I'm with my recovery people. And it's just nice, you know, and I get that peace in my heart. You know, my head's crazy. You know, my head is crazy. And recovery and all the stuff that I do really brings that down to like a nice place. So, you know, it's kind of like two aspects of the crazy Ibiza. And you know, them days were amazing, you know, but it just got dark for me, you know, to now I do recovery. And, you know, me and my wife, Kat, who you just met, you know, we rocked out of Space closing 5 in the morning. You know, she can't walk. She fell into a bush, something like that. It was just, and I was sober. You know what I mean? And it's like I can do that stuff now. Sobriety. You know, I don't always want to stay till 5 in the morning. But it was Space closing.
Yeah.
You know, Space closing. It was just, you know, it's iconic, right? And we was there for that. And so, you know, it's just kind of the two spectrums where I've done the crazy stuff, and I still can go there now, and I just do it sober.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Space closing was and it, you know, it's an iconic club.
Yeah.
You know, and we've done that, and I continue to do, you know, do festivals, and you know, we're going to Ibiza for our 10-year wedding anniversary. You know, we're going to renew our vows and stuff like that. So I do everything, just do it sober.
Yeah, of course. What should a young musician kind of be aware of going into heightened environments where they're more than likely going to be offered at least alcohol, but you know, the length and breadth of it. I mean, I've never seen a needle in a club, but do you know what I mean? They're going to be probably offered something. Like, what would you suggest they should be sort of thinking about?
Oh, I don't know. It's really difficult. Like, it's difficult when someone's young as well to kind of. I just think, you know, the good thing is a lot of youngsters are more aware. I think they go gym a lot more. They're really good with their food. So, you know, maybe this is controversial. Like, I think everything in moderation. You know, if you want to go and party in Ibiza for a couple of days, and then you spend the rest of your time eating well and looking after your mental health, then I don't really see a problem with that. You know, but it depends what sort of person you are. You know, like, you know, like my brother's really different from me. Like, we'll go on golf days and stuff like that, and they'll bring me own golf carts, and it's like free booze. So I'm like, how many beers do you want? And he go, oh, I just want one. And I'm like, what do you mean one? Like, you need a couple. So I'll grab him a couple, put in my bag or whatever. But he's not like that. One beer is okay for him, you know what I mean? And he's just a drinker, but he hardly drinks, and that suits him. But for me, my brain is wired differently. So it depends on what sort of person you are, first of all. You know, and if you can go and do that thing and stay away from it, I don't think there's a big problem with that. But I just think you need to know your limits. And if you're getting to a space where, you know, it is getting an issue, then there's loads of things you can do. You know, another a bongo player who I know that you'll know as well. He's just hit a year clean.
Great.
And I had a really good conversation with him this week, and similar sort of thing. He just said it was just getting too much of a problem, and he said getting sober, his work's improved so much more.
Great.
And he's got so many more bookings, and he's so much more on the ball.
Great.
And he's just in the middle, and he does the walk around bongos, and he's just like, he doesn't need. I don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think it's about being aware of it, and there's a lot on offer now, which wasn't an offer when I got clean. I go running a lot, I go gym a lot. That's a really big thing for me. But like I said, I've done a lot of therapy, and I really recommend therapy. I do a lot of meetings, so I'm around sober people a lot. It's like learning to DJ learn to play the saxophone. Like, you get with your people, right? You get amongst fellow sax players, so you learn how to be and how to work. And it's kind of the same being sober. I hang around with sober people, so I see how they live their life and how they act.
Yeah.
Because, like I said before, I think there's been, there's been in recovery and being clean and sober, and there's just being, just off alcohol. Kind of two different things, really. Being clean about me is the whole, we talk about being practice principles in all of our affairs. What does that mean? It means, like, I can come on here and talk a good game with you guys, but how am I really? Am I a nice person to my wife?
Yeah.
Am I a good neighbour? How do I act outside? And it's about that stuff for me. It's about being a good person and helping other people.
Yeah.
And these are not conversations that I would have had with 24-year-old Ross DJing in Faliraki, trying to sleep with as many women as I can, and that was my mentality, you know what I mean, at that age. And that's cool maybe when you're at that age, but you get a bit older and you realise there's a bit more to life than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I try and just broaden my mind, I listen to music all the time, but I'm always trying to educate myself on what can I do, how can I be better in myself. And I do meditation, I do cold water therapy, which I really enjoy, like ice baths and stuff like that. I've done like Buddhist chanting, which I don't, I've only done that, but that was pretty cool. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I go out there and I just try and experience what's good for my mental health.
Yeah.
What works.
Yeah.
I go to like seminars like all the time with like people in our industry. Like I say, there's a little group of us that go around and we're trying to help people and stuff. And I'm always listening to new stuff and trying to be better. Trying to learn stuff. So, it's easier for me because obviously I'm a bit further down the line. So I'm not always I'm not practicing my music and stuff like that. I don't do that stuff, but I just try and train my mind.
Yeah, sure.
Because ultimately, if I'm not in the right frame of mind, this stuff's not possible. I wouldn't be able to. I'm DJing in Lake Como next month. My business, we're organising a wedding next month. We've got so much stuff on. I wouldn't be able to do these things if my mental health and that wasn't in the right place.
Yeah, and that's
and this is what sobriety's given me. And I don't preach. But that's what works for me. I've got into a space where I thought I was going to die. I couldn't stop, and this has given me a life that I never dreamed of having.
Could you let me and let everybody else know what services that you sort of provide, but also what services people could kind of get in touch with? Yeah,
so there is loads of ways of getting sober. I do 12-step meetings, so 12-step meetings would be CA, which is Cocaine Anonymous, NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous, and AA, which is Alcoholics Anonymous. There's loads of them, but they're the kind of the three main ones. So their meetings are local, so the point is they're free to go to. You just put a couple of pounds in the pot, and I think that's really, people want a quick fix. So you can you can go into treatment and stuff, but that's a lot of money, and we're in a quick fix society. And I know so many people that go into treatment and they'll either drink again. In fact, if you go to treatment, they'll put you in a room of 20 people and they'll say, right, like 4 of you are going to die pretty soon of this illness, and it's pretty full on, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with. And, a lot of people want to go to treatment because they think if they throw money at it, it's going to be a solution, and it's not a solution. Like we spoke before, like this is, for me, is ongoing, 11 years in, You know, I talk to people every day about this stuff. But yeah, CA and NA is a great way, but it's not the only way. It's not the only way. But for me, how I use, because it's very extreme, it was the only way. But I know people that do, therapy is a really good way. You know, I know people that literally started running, and now they just run marathons. But that works for them. The gym is always a great one. There's hypnotism. I know a guy that does hypnotism. He's got a really good record as well. I just think you need to find your feet and find what works for you. But recovery is what works for me. Going to meetings is what works for me, because I like to be with my tribe. You know, because when you're doing this stuff, you think, oh, I'm all alone. And then when you go to these meetings, you mix with other people, you realise I'm not the only one that's doing this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that was a really key thing for me. Think, God, it ain't just me.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a load of things out there. But if you're struggling, hopefully my Instagram will be on there. Just drop me a message. You know,
all your links there.
I get messages every day from people. I get late night messages as well. People messaging me saying, people late night messaging me, then delete the message. Yeah, I get that a lot, and I just message them back and I go, look, what's up? Let's just talk about it. And yeah, I think talking about it takes the power out of it. You know, we spoke about some stuff before, and it was like, it takes the power out of it. For me, I know if I'm talking about it, I feel better. So by sharing something with you, I just go, actually, it's not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah.
To
touch on a previous point that you made about a musician who was saying that not using has affected sort of maybe some of their opportunities about being in particular parties or not going to the after parties. I think there has to be at some point within ourselves, because it is work, you do want to make sure that you're booking gigs, you want to make sure that you're keeping in touch with new people and making new contacts and keeping that going. But you don't have to say yes to every opportunity anyway, and every gig that comes your way, you don't have to say yes. I wouldn't have thought that being sober would mean that you would lose out on opportunities, but then what do I know? Because apparently there are people saying that actually that's the opposite. But I guess it's more of a statement / question, interpret it how you will. But when it comes to actually, if people deem me as not cool because I'm not prepared to go to certain places or do certain things, should one just accept that actually, okay, well then I'm going to lose out on these opportunities and I'm going to focus on what I think is my path? Or is it worth trying to maintain your boundaries and then going into environments like these sort of after parties where unquestionably there's going to be a bunch of narcotics available? Is it worth going in those places, or is it actually okay to say, I'm not going to your parties, I'm not going to these other sort of gigs that you've got going on?
Yeah, I think it depends what sort of person you are, but I think it's good to have boundaries and be that way, right? But it's true. People would think, I don't trust that guy. He's not at the after party.
Yeah,
it's sad, isn't it? But I think you need to be in this business. You need to be. So many people that lie and make stuff up. I think you need to be who you are, right? And I think to be in this industry a long time, you need to be honest and upfront with people and say, look, this is who I am. This is what I do. Because it's such a fake industry, right? And you hear so many stories of people doing stuff for so much, and I'm like, wow. And I hear that a lot, right? Heard some stuff this week about someone I knew, and I was like, wow. There's no longevity in acting that way in this industry. I think be who you are. As cheesy as that sounds, if you don't want to be part of that, then don't be part of it. Find your own way. If you're good at what you do, you'll find your way anyway. People don't want to work with you, and I think it will come back round because people want to be with good people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They don't want to be with a wreckhead at the party that's still wreckhead at a party. You know what I mean? They want to be with the guys that maybe are not at them after parties.
And it's a small industry as well. So when you're talking about the wreckhead at the party, the likelihood is you know who that is and I know who that is.
Yeah.
And somebody else knows who that is and somebody else, and to the point where word travels and maybe you don't get calls because, hey, probably don't work with him, he's a bit of a wreckhead.
Yeah.
I know that's happened to people.
Yeah.
It's a very small industry and everybody talks.
Reputation's everything, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in that now. But yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult because you want to be with the cool kids, right? You want to be part of that. you know, the kids. But yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult industry, but it's the best industry, right?
It's the best industry.
We get paid to do what we love. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How lucky are we, you know?
I mean, but also it's not free, is it? Because now we've got to deal with these very real and present issues, which
Yeah.
are temptations on every corner.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm appreciative of my journey in the music game, and I'm appreciative of the experiences that I've had. A lot of them have kind of built me up to where I am now, and actually have sort of encouraged me to sit down and talk with people like yourself about some of these experiences. Because it is a fantastic life that you get to live. I've traveled so much that I otherwise probably wouldn't have. I'm super, super grateful for that. But I'm a big believer in alchemy. I'm a big believer in yin and yang and in balance. And I think you don't just get great experiences for free without the other side of things, which are, you know, which are the temptations, which are sort of maybe darker situations that you have to manage and have to sort of know how you're going to deal with, basically. But listen, man, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me about this. I've got a question that I ask everybody I sit down with. It's like my ending question to my conversations. I'm still wording it. By the next episode, I would have worded this question so we don't do this preamble. But essentially, the question is, in regards to your sort of inner voice and your opinions of yourself, like, what is your most valuable one?
What's my most valuable opinion of myself? That's a difficult question. Do you know what? For a long time, I didn't have a good opinion of myself. And sometimes now I don't have a good opinion of myself. But, you know, I know that part of my recovery is that I'm honest, and that's really important. Honesty, you know, I don't lie, I don't cheat, you know. You'll never find someone in this industry that says, I owe them money.
Yeah.
Or I've let them down, or I've done them over money. So I think that's a big part. But yeah, my opinion of myself has changed recently, but it took a while to get to that. It took me a long while to kind of like the person that I am. That sounds cheesy, right? But yeah, it took a long while to get to there. But yeah, I don't know, it's like, you know, I'm happy with where I'm at today, you know. And what happened was I last year, me and my wife we got twin girls, which you met earlier, right?
Yes.
Beautiful, weren't they?
Beautiful girls, man.
So, and you know, I'm going off the boil a little bit here, but we really struggled around that stuff, and we really struggled, and you know, we thought it might not happen. And then what happened was I was working away, and Kat was pregnant. I was working in Santorini, and I had to go. Couldn't let the client down. It was friends of ours as well. So she was like 37 weeks, and I was in Santorini, which is not ideal. Got back, and my girls were born on a Monday, and then 6 days later, when I was 10 years clean and sober, and that was a year ago.
Right.
And it's just like, these are the things sobriety has given me to make me be a better person. So I get to, you know, how mad is that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's fascinating because, like you said, I think we're a communal organism. I think this is going to get really deep really quickly. I feel like when you introduce yourself, say, you know, I am Ross, I am Tashomi, we all share that I think that I is the one, right? And I think we need each other to be
100%.
getting better.
100%.
You know, the fact that you can get better and the fact that you can be on your 10 years means that your daughters are born into an environment where dad is clear from all of that.
Yeah.
And they've got a stable home. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to go on that mission for them. And even so, doing all of this, it brings you here, and we can now talk about all of this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And you can be a support to me and to everybody listening, and all the people who are messaging you on your Instagram at whatever o'clock because they've probably just done a line they're not terribly happy with, and now they want to talk it through. Like it's fundamental, I think, that we kind of work on ourselves for each other. I'm sounding like a super preachy person.
But no, it's true. It's you know, we're here, in my opinion, we're on this earth to help each other. I was like, what are we here for? You know, what are we here for? We're not here to help each other. But I was talking with my brother about this recently, and he said, oh yeah, but you won't drink now. You got, you know, nice house, and you got a wife, and you got girls, like, you won't drink now. And I'm like, I don't know, like, that stuff's not going to stop me. You know, but I don't want to drink for today. You know, I never want to drink again. Never want to drink again.
Yeah.
But that stuff's not going to stop me. No, what's going to stop me is continue to help people, continue to do my daily routine, what I do, continue to go to meetings, continue to help others, continue to understand who I am, that's what's going to stop me not drinking. Of course, that's a great factor for the girls, but because my brain's wired different, you know, I don't automatically think, you know, I had nice stuff before and I was still drunk. I had an amazing wife before and I was still drunk. So that never stopped me then. Oh, I've got 2 girls, but that's not going to stop me now. You know, it's just the ongoing. You know, it's like I said at the start, it's ongoing. Always working on myself, and you know, God willing, I never want to drink again.
Yeah, man. Well, ironically, cheers to that.
Thanks, mate. Cheers to that.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it. No,
I'll bring it in.
you. Yes. Oh, absolutely, brother.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Thanks, mate.
How was that?